morning.
Good morning.
It's a real cop-out.
Good morning.
I'm not happy with that.
No?
They won't be either.
No. A couple of different coffees on display today.
Yeah, we don't know who's sponsoring us anymore.
What have you gone for, Laura?
Water.
Yeah?
Yeah, already had a coffee upstairs.
Because it could be a Guinness Clear, as it. Yeah. What about yourself?
What am I having?
Yeah.
It's an oat cappuccino.
Yeah?
Yeah. What about you?
Cappuccino in the morning, flat white in the afternoon. Is
Well,
that
yeah,
right?
you can't have a cappuccino past midnight.
No, well, you can't, no. Especially not if you've had pasta.
Them's the rules.
Right. Producer Laura's here.
Hello.
And
Sean.
Sean. Sean's here.
Hello.
Should we start with Keir Starmer?
Yeah.
He's told Chris Evans on Virgin Radio that he won't work past 6 o'clock. What do you make of that, Laura?
I mean, it just feels like such a non-story to me. Genuinely. I was listening to there was a phone in on Nick Ferrari this morning, and everyone was phoning in kind of saying the same thing, like, what does this have to do with anything? And Nick Ferrari was trying to kind of like goad them into being like, well, when you, like, other people work hard, other people work past 6 p.m. And it was like, yeah, but I mean, I'm sure if the country, like, if there was an emergency or a crisis, he would be there. He's just simply saying he'd like one evening a weekend to be with his family. It doesn't seem unreasonable to me.
And you can't get the civil service aren't working past 6 p.m. no offense, but, or even, comms anywhere around government. On a Friday, actually, any time, it's actually quite tricky. If you're going to put, say, something in like a press request to the Home Office, they do get quite tetchy that you've done it on a Friday, even if it is midday.
Yeah, if anything, if he's staying around a lot later, he's just giving them more work to do on Monday, isn't he?
Yeah, just piling it up. Is it not because his wife's Jewish?
That was part of it. Yeah, he said that like Friday night dinner was like to be with his wife's family on a Friday night was an important thing to him.
That feels pretty important, that, no?
I'd say so, yeah.
You wouldn't work between 11 and 12 on a Sunday, would you?
No, never.
You're
never.
up there
I'm
singing
always in
hymns.
the church, yeah. Always in church. Yeah. We don't really do a lot of hymn singing, though, in Ireland. Do you do hymns here?
Well, we have 3 services on a Sunday. One of
Midday,
which is
morning, and 6 o'clock.
No, you can go to an early one at 9. That's a quick.
Yeah. An hour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, 45 really.
Okay.
Yeah, you kind of.
It depends on who you get, really, doesn't it?
Yeah, if you get someone wanging on at the homily. We had this one priest when I was a kid, who was called. This is ridiculous. He was called Father Hugh Flower, and he was a horticulturalist at Kew Gardens.
Nominative determinism.
Yeah.
So cute.
Great.
Yeah, and he loved to homily him. He was a gay man, so he had a lot to
Atone for. Yeah.
No, he just like he was very progressive for a Catholic.
Yeah.
So
Well, yeah, Pope Francis wouldn't really be a fan of him, would he?
well, no, the Pope's all right with that.
Is he?
Yeah.
It didn't sound like it the last couple of weeks.
Well, he wants them in the church. Though.
What was I gonna say? We had a guy that would go on quite a bit. Father Pat was his name. He did my communion. And you'd be looking at the guts of 90 minutes for a mass.
Yeah.
Because it was kind of, he would just forget where he was in his homily and just continue talking.
God.
I think my communion lasted like 3 hours.
No.
Because you've got then the communion mass, you've got the regular mass, and then you've got the ceremony of the communion. But every section of it was dragged way further than it should have been. So we were there for like the guts of the morning.
Well, because he's bluffing, because he's not sure where he is in the ceremony.
Well, yeah,
so
he's getting there, and then it's like he just isn't looking at his place anymore. Starts chatting.
That feels a bit like if like Joe Biden was trying to give communion.
Oh, a topical joke. Oh, very good. Should we talk about America?
Should we?
I don't know. Was it on the rundown? Sorry, I haven't looked. Sorry.
What is there in America? Well, you've got fucking that Supreme Court thing. But to be honest,
I want to pick Laura up on something that she's written here.
Okay.
There's a bullet point, and it says relatable/humanized.
Yeah.
Can you talk us through that, please?
Well, I was going to ask you if you think that Keir Starmer, speaking about wanting to spend Friday night as like a family night, if that was an attempt by him to try and appear relatable and human, something that he's been criticised as maybe not being the most throughout the campaign trail.
What do you make of that?
It'd be really shit if that was like his last ditch attempt to become relatable to people. I too finished work early on a Friday. Good, man.
Everyone up, the Red Wall are really going to look at that and go, he eats dinner too. He's just like me. Just like me.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It's, I get the Tory attack line, but then it isn't, I don't think it's strong enough to try and claw back. It's never going to claw back 20 points in the polls. It's never going to do any damage to Keir Starmer realistically, to just be like, oh, he's taken weekends off when he's Prime Minister. I guess everyone kind of assumed that you do that, but it's just an unspoken thing that it's like, we don't look behind the curtain into number 10, or behind the door into number 10, if you want to say it properly.
No, there's a couple of curtains out the front.
Are there?
Well, in the windows.
But they're inside Downing Street.
Oh, right. So we'd have to be in to pull
We'd
back
have to
the
be
curtain.
in to pull back the curtain,
yeah.
wouldn't we? Yeah. So I think there's an assumption that your leaders are working 24/7, 365. For him to say that he is actually finished work for the weekend at 6 o'clock on a Friday is pulling back the curtain a little bit. And the Tories are trying to capitalise on that by saying, oh, well, we've not been doing that.
Well, maybe it would have been more helpful if they had.
Well,
Finished early. But that's one of a couple of attack lines that the Conservatives have attempted to jump onto this week. The other one was the pensions. Keir Starmer, in an interview this weekend, he'd said that he was not going to renew the tax-free portion of your pension that you can take out. So you can take out, I think it's around 20% of your pension that's tax-free. And that is a policy in place designed that you hand that cash over to the next generation, because the next generation have been at the behest of wage stagnation. So you have to take the older lot's cash in order to buy your house. That's the idea.
I'm so glad that we're relying on pensioners to keep ourselves afloat.
I am too. But what they don't spend on the winter fuel allowance, they do spend on deposits. So great system. That didn't have a lot of cut through either. So the Labour Party actually corrected it a couple of minutes afterwards, and they said, no, we are going to renew it. None of it seems to have any cut through, Laura.
I mean, I just think the whole campaign, like, it feels like the 6 weeks haven't actually changed anything. Like, we began the campaign with like Labour, was it 20 points ahead in the polls over the Conservatives, and we've come 6 weeks and that hasn't changed. And it just feels like it doesn't really matter what attack lines the Conservatives would have put forward. They've had 14 years in government, and people just want change.
Which is probably why we've had a pretty flat election, to be honest. It's not been that interesting.
Because Labour have been really campaigning since the last days of Boris Johnson.
Yeah.
So you've got a government that's resigned to defeat for the last 2.5 years. Is it 2.5 years? What, 2 years? It's about 2 years, isn't it? They know that they're out at the next election 2 years ago. Labour know that they're the incoming government 2 years ago. You get to the 6 weeks before and it's just a formality at this point.
It does feel a bit like a formality, doesn't it?
Yeah. There's been nothing sexy about this whatsoever. A completely sexless campaign. Yeah.
Do you know what though? Let's get into Labour a little bit, actually, at both of them, because let's talk a little bit about who's been out on the campaign trail, because I find this really interesting. The Conservatives haven't put a number of ministers on the campaign trail. The main ministers that you've really seen out are Mel Stride, Work and Pension Secretary. You haven't really seen Grant Shapps. You've seen him a little bit. But any of their, I guess, quote unquote, attack dogs, Suella Braverman, Kemi Badenoch, haven't seen them.
I mean, are they trying to distance themselves from this campaign and from this government so that when they are then in opposition, they have the room to present themselves as the next leaders and as a change in the Conservative Party?
I agree with that. And I also think that they are fighting for their lives within their constituencies.
Yeah.
I thought it was fascinating that Rishi Sunak was attempting to... Did he go to the hustings in the end, or was he just attempting to arrange one in his constituency?
In Richmond.
Yeah, in Northallerton. And then Liz Truss was seen out campaigning. Theresa May, who, obviously has stepped down, but she was out campaigning. She was on the doorstep.
Mm-hmm.
It's not tradition for former prime ministers to actually go out and campaign.
Because it's for granted that they're going to win the seat back, isn't it?
Yeah,
usually.
You might do like a photo op or something like that. You might do like a spotted David Cameron is, feeding pigs in Chipping Norton, for example.
Did you see that video of Liz Truss being caught in someone's Ring doorbell?
Yeah.
That they just didn't answer the door.
Oh, I didn't see that. I saw the Theresa May Ring doorbell one. Yeah, but I didn't see the Liz Truss one.
Who was it who was telling me the other day that Sadiq Khan was on their doorbell? Someone in my family told me. I can't remember who it was.
Huh.
Yeah.
Canvassing.
Yeah, he was out canvassing for the local MP. Yeah.
That's
Wow.
interesting.
I'll ring my dad afterwards and ask who it was. They were on the doorbell. But yeah, it's totally unusual. You might do sort of like a little bit of token, like here's like a picture of us, but to actually have, especially early on in the campaign, David Cameron, Foreign Secretary, former Prime Minister, actually out fighting for his life.
Yeah.
They should not be doing that. And, campaigning in constituencies where there is a 20,000 majority. The average was 14,000 majority. That's where they've been targeting and campaigning. Labour have been going for places. If there's, I think it was the threshold was something like 2,000. If there was a 2,000 majority, that Conservative majority, they just didn't even bother going to the seat.
Do you think? I mean, they always knew that it was Labour were going to win the election, but do you think that they were taken off guard by maybe how successful Ed Davey's been during the election, and also with Nigel Farage entering into Reform?
I reckon Farage, but I don't think they're bothered about Davey. What do you reckon?
Yeah.
Do you not
don't like. How do you define the success of Ed Davey?
I think like the loss of the blue wall in the south, like maybe they weren't expecting having such tough competition there.
I think they knew they were going to lose Isha. I reckon they didn't think they were going to fight for
Like Jeremy Hunt's seat, for example.
Yeah.
which I don't think is going to go Lib Dem.
Really?
Yeah, I've nailed my colours to the mast, which will probably mean that it will. I've got a feeling that one will stay Conservative.
I think Rishi Sunak is also going to keep his seat.
Do you?
Maybe.
I'm not.
But if I'm jinxing it now, let's just name some seats
Oh, okay.
and then jinx every single one
I
of
see.
them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Would you like some Labour gossip?
Yeah.
Always.
Okay, so we won't give a lot away, but we'll give a little bit away.
Show
a little taste.
A little bit of ankle.
Okay, so what's important heading into government, if you want to see who's going to have what responsibility, you can look at who has been out on the campaign trail. Positions that are in jeopardy. David Lammy. Haven't seen him very much on the campaign trail. I have spoken to a couple of people who say that he is going to be moved on from Foreign Secretary. He's not particularly popular with the leader's office. A lot of it was relying on him and his relationship with the Obama administration, and they thought that would translate over to having a good relationship with the Biden administration. Now that that's looking like it's going to go to Trump, possibly, his worth, his value has diminished to the party. Now, there is talk about him potentially moving over to run for Mayor of London when Sadiq Khan has finished his third term, or would we call it a third trimester?
Yeah.
Dawn Butler was, of course, lined up for that role, but Dawn Butler has fallen out of favour with the leader's office. She's not exactly, she's not the Blairites' favourite.
Yeah, not their brand of Labour.
So it looks like it could, David Lammy could nicely slot into that, perhaps in a few years' time. Angela Rayner has not been out and about very much. You saw her out quite a lot during the opening of the campaign.
Yeah.
First couple of weeks, she was given a bus. Since then, she's had that feature with Gordon Brown, hasn't she? But apart from that, we haven't really seen her. This gives way to the question about what her ministerial brief will be after the election. And it's thought she could actually end up as Deputy Prime Minister in name only. in title only, so she wouldn't have a brief. And you go, well, no, because she could be the Duchy of Lancaster, like
Isn't
Michael
she
Gove.
shadow leveling up as well? No, she's
Well,
not.
you would think she might have that,
Yeah.
but the two people who are underneath her, including Justin Madders, who's been working on the New Deal of Work for Workers with her. He was at the TUC Congress last year with her, announcing this big policy. It looks like he's going to be the minister of that brief. He's going to be given a special advisor. Therefore, Angela's role in that relationship is significantly reduced. So, sorry, I was saying about the Duchy of Lancaster. Well, you'd think that she might get that because that's what Michael Gove had, and that's sort of what you give someone who doesn't quite have a brief, right? But so they're at cabinet and they've got something to do.
Yeah. Does she necessarily
That's
have to be the
looking-
deputy prime minister because she's the deputy leader?
Yes,
Huh. That's interesting.
that's looking like it could go to Pat McFadden,
Okay.
the Duchy of Lancaster.
As
She doesn't
well
act,
as
no. I mean, look, listen. She's going to be the deputy leader of the Labour Party.
No, that's what I'm saying. So because she's the deputy leader, does that automatically put her as the deputy prime
Doesn't
minister? 'Cause she's the
automatically,
number
no,
two.
but
It's the done thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
It would be. It's sort of like Tom Watson. He'd fallen out of favour,
Yeah.
but he stayed in that shadow position.
Yeah.
Because, well, I mean, the party position is obviously different from the government brief. This is the way that you can basically water. There has been a concerted effort for quite some time with Angela Rayner to make it uncomfortable so that she no longer wants to hold that position. Starmer can't remove her as deputy leader, but he can make it unbearable so that she leaves on her own volition, right? This to me would make sense because it would be sort of the final attempt at dislodging her. And if you see who's been out and about together, it's Rachel and Keir
Yeah.
all the time, those two.
Yeah.
It should be,
Yeah.
if precedent was,
It should be the two of them, yeah.
it should be Angela and Keir.
What do we think of what's going to happen to the New Deal for workers during this time? Is it going to be like knives in the back for the first couple of years where there's not going to be any dissent within Labour, but it's very apparent to everyone outside of Labour that the left of the Labour Party and Keir Starmer's Labour Party are eating each other because he doesn't want to abide by Angela Rayner's New Deal?
It's tricky because it depends. There's sort of the unions have kind of diminished responsibility, right? And it depends how strong of a line they decide to take on it. The only union that did not endorse the manifesto was Unite, and that's Sharon Graham.
Yeah.
The rest of the unions sort of fell in line, and the rest of the unions were actually pretty angry at her for the position that Unite took. There's also a potential fallout with the GMB union because of a portion of the manifesto which is about renewing new oil and gas licenses, not renewing them. GMB obviously represent a lot of workers who work in those fields. They can't back it. If those unions... What was the question?
About the New Deal for workers.
Yeah.
How
yeah.
the parliamentary party is going to eat itself.
Those unions, if they can't find a sort of foothold in Keir Starmer's conscience, that New Deal for workers is redundant.
But that's the thing, isn't it? Is that I wonder how much he is going to rely on the unions once he gets in. Because the unions, the theory would be that a lot of the backing of the unions at this point is contingent on the deal for workers being a centerpiece of the manifesto and a centerpiece of the next 5 years.
But why is that? It was to win the endorsement of the unions
Well, that's
on the
what
manifesto.
I'm saying. How much impact do the unions stepping away from the Labour Party once they're in power have on Keir Starmer as Prime Minister or Labour as government?
Well, see, that's what eyes will
And
be
does
on.
it like lead the way? Sorry, does it lead the way for a new left-wing party that the unions then endorse? You know?
Yeah, I think it's as well like if they don't have the New Deal for workers, like what does Keir Starmer's government have in terms of materially changing like the conditions that have kind of led to where we are now? And it's like we were talking upstairs before about France, and Europe generally, and why these kind of far-right parties have found such a foothold. And it really feels like, because after the financial crisis, that should have been a turning point. It should have been a place to change the actual economic consensus, but instead what we got was almost like a sped up form of what we had before, which was a shrinking welfare state and like a permanent form of austerity. And it feels like in Britain we've given the centre ground like one last chance. You can change this economic consensus. If they don't, it feels like we're just going to end up where Europe have found, or the rest of Europe have found themselves currently.
And he's identified that as a problem, hasn't he?
He has, yeah. He's identified it in kind of name. He said, when he was asked about what lessons should Labour draw from the French elections, he said, the lesson I take from that is that we need to address the everyday concerns of so many people in this country who feel disaffected by politics, who feel the country is either too broken to be mended or that they can't trust politicians. But it feels then if he is going to not follow through perhaps with the New Deal for workers, and he's sticking to these really tight fiscal rules about spending, and it is just kind of a continuation of austerity.
It's just liberalism repackaged every time. Like since 2008, in France, right, the whole thing of this optimism around a radical alternative to the left being centered around Macron. And then it's just everyone is somehow surprised that a guy who used to work in an investment bank is for the 1% and just continuing the status quo as it was before. And that's kind of what we're at the cusp of now, is finding out whether that's the case here or not, right?
And I feel like the danger is like those centrist parties like En Marche in France, and they've like taken the language of progressivism, but they're governing like neoliberals. And I feel like it's created a backlash against progressivism because things haven't gotten better, even though we've adopted its language. And people are now, there's like a backlash against that, even though we've actually not had it in practice. We've just had its language being used by the centre ground.
It's quite Starmer, that, isn't it?
Yeah, yes, which is why I think, like, are we just heading towards, like, are we just 7 years behind France?
I'd say even less.
For God's sake.
It's fucking Tuesday, isn't it?
The last time it went on for so long was because the
guy forgot to turn it off.
Sorry, on the neoliberal, yes, on the policies like nationalising the rail, they're not nationalising the rail. It's a neoliberal policy.
Yes.
It's just, it's going to be a whole lot of private companies.
Yeah.
Still
taking the language of progressivism and using it for, What's that?
NHS too.
Yeah. I think as well, it's like when you look at what policies won the far right in the European elections, so much of the youth vote, and it wasn't just anti-immigration rhetoric, but I think it was Chega in Portugal and the Freedom Party in the Netherlands both ran on housing as one of their critical issues and the cost of living crisis and how it's affecting young people. And it's like Ollie has kind of said before, like if reform were to adopt housing as a central issue, that they could capture a lot more of the youth vote. And it feels like actually there's kind of evidence that that could be the case if you look at how these European parties won so much of the youth vote.
What policy do you think that the Conservatives could come out with today or tomorrow that could win over the youth?
So, to like slim the margins, or like to get back into power?
Slim the margins.
It's tough, isn't it? Because anything that they propose is just going to be, why haven't you done it in the last 15 years?
I think it's going to be cold hard cash.
Or just give everybody under the age of 30 like 10 grand.
Yeah. I'd be like, all right.
You don't pay any tax until you're 30.
No, too late for me.
35.
Only Laura would get the full run of benefit.
Yeah, that's true. 35. How about...
I think free tuition. I think they could win a lot I think any party, if they were genuine about it, would win a lot of.
Yeah.
No, I've pulled the ladder up. I'm saddled with it. You can deal with it
Wiping
too.
student loans.
And free tuition.
Did you
Yeah.
see this morning? 1.8 million people in the UK with over £50,000
Over 50k, yeah.
Yeah.
worth of debt. It's good
Same.
that. Yeah.
Debt free, baby.
I don't know what mine is now, but it does keep going up.
When's the last time you looked at it?
I probably looked at it a year ago, so it's probably got a hell of a lot more on it now.
Yeah. Well, no, the interest rate is lower now, isn't it?
Yeah, but I haven't looked at it during the year where it was really high.
You're just getting the BBC pushes every month. Interest rates have doubled again. I can't wait to look at this in a year.
I love that I love that they added that on to the student loans.
Mm-hmm. It was really nice.
It was good, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Also, do you know what I really respect about the Conservatives is that when it came to the student loans, it's RPI, isn't it?
Is CPI?
I think it's RPI. We'll have to double check it.
RPI is retail price index.
Yeah.
And CPI is consumer price index.
But I believe it was.
I know what 2 acronyms are. Thank you.
I believe that they went by RPI for student. We'll have to check it. RPI for student loans. But then when they've been talking about inflation, they've been like, well, the RPI is not very reliable. It's like, well, it was reliable enough to use on the loans, wasn't it? Like,
10%. Yeah, just knock another 10% on that. Stick a 0 on.
do you know that drill? I thought that was Sam going.
Yes.
That did have quite a Sam sound.
It did, didn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, how long have we been going for?
31 minutes.
I think.
Nice.
I think we can
we've
wrap
got it because we're fighting.
Yeah, we're fighting for our lives.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you wanted to say?
No.
No. Did you want to say anything?
No.
Okay, fellas, we're going to be live Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to be going all night. We've got some really beautiful graphics that have been made as well.
I thought you were going to say
Shout out to
guests
Steve
there.
Mills.
Oh, we have got some beautiful guests. But they'll be, I mean, we'll be all over it.
Mm-hmm.
All over it.
The most beautiful guests, the most beautiful graphics.
The most beautiful. We're going to have a beautiful time. What time are we kicking off? 9:30? 10:45? 10?
10.
10.
10. Okay,
10
great.
o'clock. Straight after
we should
the
have
exit
chatted about
poll.
this before. Okay, we'll see you for the exit poll.
Yes, we will.
Nice.
Bye.
Bye.